Hey, hope you're well today. This is Edward, another video today on buying businesses, and I'll talk today about what I think are the top deal structures you can use in 2026 to acquire companies in both US and Canada. And I'm going to share some concepts on it, but it's essentially the capital structure that I see getting implemented in a lot of the deals going into 2026. The deals we typically do, work done, are in between 1 million in value up to 10 million in value. In most cases, actually between 1 million to 6 million in value. For US specifically, if you're a buyer buying a company, a very typical deal structure we see is an SBA 7A loan for debt, and it goes up to 90%. So 90% out of a purchase price. That can be combined with a 5% equity note, meaning an injection from you as far as capital into the deal. It's like a down payment. And it could also be combined with a 5% seller finance note, which will be in full standby for the full length of that SBA 7A loan, which means you're not going to pay the seller until you pay off the SBA loan. And yes, they will accept that if you're paying almost 95% of day one. You could also get an additional working capital if things are done correctly to be able to use some of that working capital to properly buy the business. In your letter of intent, you will need to stipulate that as well, based on the deal you have and the net working capital, the adjusted net working capital needed to be able to operate the company. A lot of the sellers will try to get out the working capital or the cash out of the business and try to essentially run with it, but you will need to negotiate that as hard as you can to be able to maintain it. If you can, you're going to need to find a workflow and a solution around it, and that might affect the purchase price as well. Two is you could also put down 10% in the deal, which is going to be a lot more accepted than SBA lenders than the 5%. And you could then do a 5% seller financing note, which is also going to be on standby. And then you can do around 85% of an SBA 7A loan. Um, Most likely, the second offer that I just presented right now is going to be a lot more accepted by a lot of the lenders just because you're putting in more skin of a game. So it's a very common way of closing deals right now. So if a deal is $2 million in value, you're putting in 200K in the deal and 100K seller financing, and the rest would be a 7A SBA loan. Another way that I see deals getting closed, which is a little bit more creatively in the US and Canada, is essentially um, off-market deals. And off-market deals, the way they work is you reach out to the business yourself directly. It's not you going to brokers and you're getting a SIM and you're doing the whole process, right? Is you're reaching out to a seller, they're considering to sell, you're educating them how that works. It takes a little bit of time to educate, a few weeks, you're preparing the numbers, they're giving you the numbers, you're making an offer, and you're buying out the company. A lot of the times I saw deals where the buyer is not paying the whole money up front on day one, as in the first deal structure and the second deal structure I explained. So instead of them paying 80, 90% of a value up front, is what you could do is you could pay 20, 30, 40, 50% of the money on day one. And you could get that money from yourself, or you can get that money from an investor and give them ownership in the deal as well. And then you could defer the rest of the payment. So, for example, if you pay 20% of the money on day one, you could say, hey, look, I don't have 80% of the rest of the money today, but what we could do is we could pay you 80%, or we can pay you maybe a little bit more even, and we can pay you on interest. So we'll give you, let's say, 6% interest over 7 years, and that way we can pay you this capital structure. What's interesting is you can pay them more, and you can pay them an interest, and you can also create a plan to grow up a company to show them how you're going to be able to do that. Now, that typically happens with a retiring baby boomer. And it typically happens when you're the perfect buyer for that seller. You're not just like a random guy that doesn't know how to run the company, and you're coming in with some of these offers. We've done a deal like that in cybersecurity. It was almost a $10 million deal, almost 100% seller financing. So in that case, we know it works. It's a lot more rare, but it is going to happen in 2026 if you're going to come in with some deposit or some skin of a game. That deposit could go up to 50%, but it could start also with 10%, 20%, 30%, and you could get your foot in the door that way if the business is very, very motivated to sell, and they believe that you're the next essentially owner of that company, and you're going to be able to take care of their legacy. I've saw more than 50 deals like that happen in the last 7 years, so I know this is still going to be very relevant in 2026. It's how you do it, and you're going to need to master off-market deal flow and finding deals off-market that don't have brokers. Now, as far as Canada, if you're doing a deal in Canada, you're going to get a commercial loan from companies like RBC, BDC, which is a lending mechanism, which is a commercial loan. And the typical down payment of that, let's say we talked about the 10% down from you, 5% down from you on US. For Canada, it's not going to be 5 or 10%. It's going to be typically 20%. The rest is going to be like, let's say 5, 10%, up to 15% seller financing, and then the rest is going to be the loan in Canada. So this is going to be a more typical structure there. The off-market strategy is still going to work fine in Canada. You could do a lot more deals like that in Canada as well. And then in US, there's also a deal structure where you can go and get more money than 5 million in debt, because SBA is limited up to 5. And you can do conventional lending. On conventional lending in US, but down payment is not 5, 10%, it's typically 20%, just the same as Canada. So if you have a way bigger deal, there are essentially funds or commercial lenders or conventional lenders that essentially give you a bigger loan, and they typically look into bigger companies above a million EBITDA. And if you're looking to buy way bigger companies, you might need to have a bigger down payment to be able to get this kind of lending. And if you're buying smaller companies up to 5 million in value, you might just be able to do it with a 5, 10% strategy I've just explained to you. So these are the typical structures in 2026. If you have more questions, let me know. But if you want to understand how to implement this, send me a message on LinkedIn and I'll be able to connect to you to get on a Zoom call with you, get to understand your situation, your goals, and see if I can help you. Thanks.